computer and I don't like it. That's how this all came about. What's the discussion today? Back to put this on?
How social media and popular culture can harm your health.
So I learned how to do it. Can you guys hear me? Yep. Okay, let me tell you how this all came about today so everybody understands. This is another discussion that hopefully you learn something from it, but it's my opinion. Does everybody follow me? Okay? When I preface a discussion like this, I want to make sure I'm not political. I'm an independent guy. I'm still an independent doctor. But what I'm going to talk about is my own personal experience. And it has to do with healthcare and Medicare, and that's why I'm presenting it. And I didn't plan this, but at the moment, I am currently not with United Healthcare. And I had no idea how much of my practice was United Healthcare. I don't pay attention to that stuff. But in the process, what occurred was it was a piece of paper I didn't sign. And my frustration came that I've been with them for 5 years or something, and it's a credentialing. All it was a signature that was needed. I switched billing companies. So the billing company that I had for 22 years didn't send the paper for the credentialing to my office. Now, why is this relevant? Well, that's what made me look into all this stuff. And that's how I got to today's topic. And what I mean by this stuff is advertisement. You know, everything like, when does Medicare change? That's not a rhetorical, I don't know. I'm not there yet. But the bottom line is, when it comes, you guys get more mail than you normally do. And you know how much you normally get, okay? This is a good statistic, and I can't believe it. Just the money spent on just Medicare advertising. Just Medicare advertising.
You mean Medicare?
Medicare. Anybody over 65 that has Medicare, the dollar spent on advertising for Medicare, listen to what I'm going to tell you, could insure the world. Anything. If it has to do with Medicare, there's a cost to advertising for it. That cost could insure the world. Now, again, the reason I bring it up is I didn't realize how powerful advertising was. And then as I started to look into it, I don't want to present this as a conspiracy theory. Does everybody understand me? I don't want to present this as I'm far left or far right or far out. I want to tell you guys the facts that I see, what I've seen in my own practice, and how I believe everything I've seen in my practice was influenced by pop culture. Okay, and what's pop culture? Popular culture. What is the culture? What happens? Well, it's how we perceive things. And the reason I brought the computer, the positive part about this is, like, I could show you pictures if I connect this thing to whatever they're doing there, and we could put it on a screen. Because what I found was amazing. It was absolutely amazing. I found commercials from the 40s. I have them on my phone. I'm laughing because it shows a guy standing on his wife's head saying, "I thought I told you to taste that coffee before you made it this morning." In 1940, that was allowed. Does everybody follow me? So what is culture? It's us. But what's happened is it's all been created to profit. Okay? And that's why I brought some stuff I'll read at the end so everybody sees. This all came from my trying to figure out how I don't have the influence on my patients I once did because healthcare changed. And then ultimately how when patients come to see me, I usually put a half hour for the patients to visit. And so I like to talk for 10, 15 minutes. And what I used to find in that 10 or 15 minutes, I was the most important thing in the room. I was the person that gave them everything they needed to know. And now what I find is they come in telling me stuff, and the internet is the source. Like, this is now where popular culture has gotten to, that what your doctor says or what your lawyer says or what your accountant says, you're getting information from other sources, and what I found was it's in your mind. And so once something's in your mind, you can't change your mind. And what I go back to with that, I've been doing this 30-some years, and when I first started, patients didn't trust hospitals and Medicare. Does everybody follow me? When I first got into practice in 1991, my Medicare patients did not trust the government, the doctors, the hospitals. No trust. So I had big strapping guys that worked that have a heart attack. And of course, technology advanced, you can put a stent in to open up the artery. Patients wouldn't even go to the hospital. They stayed at home and died. Does everybody follow me? And I had quite a few. That's why I'm bringing this up. I saw a culture change in my practice of medicine, and I use that as an example. The guy's name was Stan, so we'll talk about Stan. He was funny. He was like a comedian. And he'd come into the office, big guy. He was probably 6'8", 310 pounds, but happy guy. And he ended up coming in with chest pain, and we diagnosed, through a stress test. He let us get the stress test. So we wanted him to get a catheterization, and I told him beforehand that we may have to put a stent in or bypass. My father died in the hospital. I'm not going to the hospital. Does everybody follow me? I'm setting this up, guys. This is 1991, and this is, I'm telling you, all the working men I had, not all, but a large population of and here's how I got them. I worked with a guy by the name of Dr. Potter, and he did what was called occupational medicine. He went to businesses and took care of patients in the businesses. Well, what happened? He was a family practitioner. So what happened? He got the whole family. And he worked Tuesday nights, Thursday nights, and Saturday. That's when I work, because he taught me that. Because that's when people that work are available to see the doctor. So he taught me how to practice back in 1991 in order to take care of patients and interact with the patients. And that's what I found. It was confounding to me, because I'm trying to tell the patients the technology that's there and what we're able to do for them, and it could be still quality of life. And these guys and ladies that worked, what did we have? Clark Candy. I mean, we had a lot of different places where a lot of people worked very hard. And they would come in to see me, and we would do our best to help maintain quality health, but they did not trust the hospital. Does everybody follow me? So we're going to say 1990, there was a little question of trust for my patients. And of course, I don't speak for all my or popular pop culture, but we're going to say pop culture, Pop C, related to healthcare, specifically Medicare. Okay? And why is that? Because, like I told you, my experience, I got thrown out of a company because I didn't sign my name on a piece of paper, and I've been with the company for over 5 years, and I come to find out I have 600 patients in that particular plan. So it bothered me to the point where I tried to see, well, what the heck's going on? And that's what led me to kind of go through this process. So again, back in the 90s, and what I'll add to this, by the way, 1991, 9:30 p.m. at my McKnight office, little Dorothy Birch came in. I locked my door, 9 o'clock. I'm leaving, taking my coat off, knock on the door. Dorothy Birch comes, she's all 5 foot, and she's with her husband, Fred, who's like 6 foot plus. He was the commissioner for the Pennsylvania Turnpike, and he can't breathe. So we sit him down in a chair. And I listened to his lungs, and he's really having trouble. So we called 911. We sent him. I was at St. Francis at the time. I called Terry Oberger. He's a pulmonologist. I still work with him. Terry, I got this guy. He's pretty sick. Can you meet him in the emergency room? He bronxed him. Finds lung cancer. Dr. Pavlik gave him his first dose of chemo 8 a.m. the next morning. So in less than 12 hours in 1991, we diagnosed and treated lung cancer. Everybody follow me? Can you do that today? We'll say less than 12 hours. Cancer of the lung. Answer, no. I can't. Why can't I? I don't make the decision. Does everybody follow me? If you're dying in my room as he seemingly was, I can get the ambulance to send you to the hospital, but we don't know if they're going to admit you or make you observation, right? And you're not going to get that kind of bronchoscopy as soon as you walk into the hospital that time of day anymore. So the concepts that I came up with this discussion today is all based on what happens to me. Does everybody follow that? That's why I'm setting it up. All right, so back to pop culture and how it influences us. All right, I hope I set up for you guys that, let's say from 1990 to about 2006, I still had control. From 2006 to about 2016, so a 10-year run, change occurred. And I'll put managed care. And why do I say that? Because it all changed right in front of me. I was independent working with Dr. Potter. Dr. Potter didn't trust the government. And he told me that, don't trust the government. So he didn't accept Medicare. What does that mean? The patients had to pay him cash. And then he wrote a receipt. They sent it into Medicare, and they got reimbursed 100%. Does everybody follow me? He retired. I prescribed to Medicare. everything dropped by 60% the next day. That happened. I went through it. Does everybody follow what I'm saying? So I'm watching popular culture change Medicare. So I had patients that wouldn't even go to the hospital. They didn't want to go near it. And all of a sudden, managed care hits. And I'll never forget, I don't know who the star was, but it was somebody singing in the rain, whatever that insurance company was, with the guy dancing and singing in the rain. The next thing you know, all of my patients that were with Dr. Potter that were Medicare patients, they all went to Keystone. That was the first managed care in this area. So I trusted Dr. Potter. I didn't join any of the managed care. So all those Keystone patients had to go somewhere else. But at the time, I was newly in practice. It didn't faze me, but I paid attention to what was changing. What did I just say? Medicare commercials can insure the world. What changed? 1983. For-profit arm. What does that mean? Prior to 1983, 98% of all hospitals in America were non-profit. What does that mean? They couldn't make a profit. What does that mean? They had no commercials on television. Is everybody with me? I lived through it, guys. I was training in 1983. I've told you guys a story before, but it's worth repeating. July 1983. June 1983. Back in those days, you were on every other night. So I worked the 29th into the 30th, and I had a pneumonia case. You see the patient, you have them cough some stuff up, you check the chest x-ray, you write the orders for the antibiotic, you go back to bed, right? Because it's in the middle of the night. The very next day, I get a call, and they say, Dr. Copplola, you have to do a gram stain on the sputum. Well, what that means is you take a sample of the sputum, you put it on an agar plate, that's what they call it, and then you take a sample and you put different stains on it, and you look under the microscope to determine what type of bacteria it is. You can't determine exactly, but you can kind of hone in. Okay, so we used to do a big, broad spectrum, Now this enabled you to still broad spectrum, but less. Everybody understand the concept? So I tell the nurse, I'm not getting out of bed to come down to do a gram stain because I already saw the patient, I already put, right? So then I get a call from my attendant. Needless to say, I went down and did a gram stain, okay? And I didn't understand. Why are we doing gram stains? It was the beginning of DRGs. You guys ever heard of a DRG? You guys know what it is? DRG stands for Diagnostic Related Guidelines, okay? And now we have case managers. And I'm a PCP. And so now we have the beginning of what was called LOS. Why is that important? In my day, when I went into any floor of the hospital, the charge nurse physically met with you and you sat down at a table with all of your charts. And one by one, the nurse would tell you about every patient. Oh, Dr. Mr. Smith, he had his gallbladder out. Dr. Hennon was in. He pulled his lines. He's eating. He moved his bowels. He said he can go home if it's okay with you. Next patient. You follow me? You know what the report is this morning? Length of stay. Does everybody follow me? What is that? That's a change of culture. How did it change? I lived through it, guys. I watched it. That's what I'm presenting this to you, okay? And then what I want to sign, it's only my bookie. That's the only person that's allowed to call. Simultaneously with this, what happened in the pop culture that affected our health and well-being? What I'm telling you, did it change? What's interesting is I went through the phase of every hospital in the city of Pittsburgh in the 90s had a chest pain unit. Does everybody understand that? If you walked into any hospital from 1994 to say 2000 with chest pain, you went to a special unit. Why? Because it was very important. The heart is important. Now where is it? Outcome-based medicine has it in a statistic, and those that die are in the UNDR rate. You know what UNDR stands for? Unnecessary death rate. And so that is what the culture has allowed. Why do I bring all this up? I have a son that's third-year medicine at VCU. He's going to be chief resident next year. And I hear the way he talks. Like their discussion on cases and what goes on. In our day, you did everything you could to save whatever part of the heart you possibly could, and you put whatever medications, and you kept them in the hospital as long as it took. Now, length of stay, they need to get out. Do that as an outpatient. That's where it's all changed to. Does everybody follow me? That's the hospital change. Well, what simultaneously happened in the American culture? And this is what amazed me. I was flabbergasted by what I saw. I must have owed that guy money. All right, pop culture in America. There were things I never even heard of that I have to admit. All right, I'm going to put top 5 and we'll go from there. Alcohol. And remember now, I'm talking about advertisement that changes the popular culture's perception of things that ultimately lead to behavior changes and poor health. Does everybody follow me? So I just gave you how the healthcare system changed, and I lived through it. Now I'm going to talk to you about what I see in the practice with the popular culture change, and I'm going to bring up these drugs because I had no idea of the influence of popular culture on the drug world. Not to the degree I learned as I did this talk. Okay, so you ready? We all know about alcohol. The statistic that hit me, 80% of children today, by the time they have left school, high school, have had alcohol to the point of intoxication. That's what I didn't understand. I thought maybe you had a drink, felt a little tipsy. They're saying they've been drunk, in other words. And I thought that 80% I thought it was high. Then I go on to see, I'm going to do the advertising on the same side. Advertising. 3 to 6 year old girls. 60% of them. Let me say that again. 3 to 6 year old girls. And this is a study, by the way, Harvard and Nevada. They have 2 really good people that are doing this advertising. The name will hit me before we're done. I'll bring them both up. But the data is phenomenal, and they've put out a lot of research on this. The influence, we see 3,000 advertisements a day. Anybody over 45. You know how many children see because of cell phones? 10,000. 10,000. I didn't realize, but if you guys have a cell phone, I have flip top, so I don't count. But if you have an iPhone, if you turn on your iPhone, stuff pops up. That's where it comes from. And they're seeing it. You're seeing 3,000. That amazed me. I didn't think I saw 3,000 in a day. But I do watch sports. I do watch the news. I do have some favorite shows. We'll get into those maybe sometime later. My kids always give me a hard time. I like the Animal Planet. I don't know if you guys have ever watched the Monsters of the River. That's my favorite show. Yeah. But anyhow, the point is, there's advertisements on everything. We see 3,000 a month. Children are getting, or a day. Children are getting 10,000. 60% of 3 to 6 year old females do not feel their bodies are normal. 3 to 6 years old. Blew me away. But then when you keep reading, you see that it's big money. Okay? And the Dermatological Society and the, plastic surgeons, I mean, it just amazed me. Like, there's procedures for everything now. And a lot of this stuff comes from the West Coast. So, like, they tell the kids, don't worry. Go ahead and have that fast energy drink. You could do liposuction. And sure enough, liposuction's up in California like never, ever before. And so all the foods that they're putting out that they know are going to cause all these things to occur, don't worry about it. You can change it. So plastic surgery, liposuction, these types of things are happening before they're 14 years old. And it's commonplace. I had no clue. I had no idea. But again, it comes from the advertising. You know, what you see on television. Like, you have to be these tall, beautiful, blonde-haired girls, and if you're not, then 3 and 6 year olds are already thinking about that to the degree 60% of them are questioning it. Okay, now back to the alcohol, because it ties in to what we're seeing popular. Okay, the one that went with this was marijuana, and I thought that was interesting. And this is why I don't want to bring it up, but I have to. Dr. Jagiello, my partner, is board certified in drug and alcohol rehab. And we've been together. I've known Ben since we were both very young. I think when I met Ben, I was probably 20, 21. So that's how long I've known him. And his passion for it got me interested in it. And so we cover each other at times. And so I've seen things. And we work at a place called RHJ Medical Center that is a drug and alcohol rehab, and they do things specifically for heroin addicts, which is out of control today. And so what I saw there is they had over 4,000 patients, and on their sheet is, what made you high for the first time in your life? And what do you think is on there? 98% of the over 4,000 patients, because I looked at it. Marijuana. Okay? So if this clinic that we run, and I see it, and I see doctors, lawyers, postmen, you follow me? Heroin's everywhere, guys. Just because you don't see it or you think you see it, it's everywhere. And the fentanyl is being tricked to be heroin, and these people are dying from it because it's just horrific. But my point I bring it up for is that right now, marijuana is accepted because it's become legalized, and it's going to become, again, pop culture. It's going to change, and it becomes okay. And that's why I brought that one up for number 2, because I have to say, I see CBD oil help. And so it's funny because you look at this stuff and you think, alcohol, they say, has been around since 700 BC. And it used to be just wine, and then different people found out ways to add, the alcohol content to go up. We've already had our alcohol talks, how many you're allowed to have a week, like an ounce of this, 2 ounces of that, so everybody knows about it. I'm not here to beat anybody up. My Dr. Potter that I tell you guys about all the time, he taught me as long as your patient doesn't drink more than you do, everything's okay. All right? So the bottom line comes down to alcohol advertisement. Anybody watch football? How long is the game on? 3 hours? At least 20 commercials on alcohol. At least. And who does the commercials? Someone you love and idolize. Does everybody follow me? So that's where the advertisement gets into the psyche of whoever happens to be watching it, and then it becomes okay. Yet I've been to the meetings where MAD, the Moms Against Drunk Drivers, and when you hear someone tell a story about how they lost their 16-year-old daughter that was just driving 2 months and was hit by a drunk driver. So there is problems. That's not today's talk. The reason I'm bringing it up is how it changed. So what we see is alcohol and how it changed in the world and especially in pop culture was anything you saw, people were drinking. And so it was the cool thing to do. Okay? The next one blew me away. Cocaine. And I won't name the names, but I'll let you guys look it up on the internet. Like, famous people say that cocaine helped them do certain things in their life. That's what blows me away. But it was not considered a drug until, and this blew me away. What was the guy's name? P-E-R-M-B-O-Y. Pemboy, he was a chemist. And in 1902, he put it in his new soft drink. Can you look what we're saying? I mean, seriously. Like, to me, it's as outrageous as I can remember. I had an uncle who was a doc. He smoked. I could not imagine today having a patient sitting there, having a cigarette lit in an ashtray, and telling that patient not to smoke. You follow me? But just like I said, the guy standing on the lady's head because she didn't make him or taste his coffee. Like, it was a culture change. But where we are now today is we have a substance that was used. They said Chinese is where most of it was, and then in some of the Indian countries, they chewed on the leaves to get themselves stimulated. And that chemist put it in Coca-Cola. Well, once the government found out that people were getting addicted from the cocaine, in 1914, it became a scheduled drug and illegal. Does everybody follow the concept? But with that knowledge, would you think that you would try to keep it out of culture? Yes. Did it? No. And they always blame the West Coast. That's where all the stories come from. But to-do people had parties where you would come in and there would be a whole bowl of cocaine sitting on a table and everybody was just doing it. And the movies are out. You guys remember the movie with Al Pacino, with the cocaine? They recently had the guy, I forget his name, something about, I can't think of the names of the movies, but there's like 3 or 4, once again, that depicted that it's okay so that the children see, well, if it's okay here, it's okay, right? So everybody follow me? Cocaine. My wife's a neonatologist. She did her thesis paper at Cornell University on mothers addicted and babies becoming addicted to cocaine. And again, same with the other drugs. If you deliver, your baby is high. If you're high, the baby's high. And it was horrific what we were seeing with the children. Okay, but once again, it's glorified. All right, this one got me. Anybody know what a molly is? I didn't either. That's what's amazing when you go through, you don't know some of this stuff. It's a drug that is a stimulant It's called ecstasy, okay? And what ecstasy does is keep you stimulated, all right? And what happened with this culture was it became okay to take the ecstasy at these dance clubs. And of course, Studio 51 was one of them, and all the popular stars went to this 51. I didn't even know what it was. And then once I found out what it was and understood it more, then it made more sense to what you were seeing as a byproduct of that within culture. But once again, it was glorified as this is something to do. And then again, where did you see it? You saw it on shows. Which one did they push? It was the show about the mafia, and the guy died later afterwards. Sopranos. Apparently they pushed a lot of it on Sopranos. Okay, but again, the reason I'm bringing it up is it's one of the top 5 that, as it's shown to be something in pop culture, in movies, that's an okay thing, people do it. People illicitly take it, and it's apparently everywhere. All right? The last one I listed on the top 5 is opiates. And why am I listing them like this? Because again, popular culture now will tell you it's okay. And so what I find is alcohol, marijuana, cocaine, the mollies, and the opiates. I talk about the opiates. Again, they've been around forever. I think it was in 1890 that a chemist found a way to take the opium poppy and make morphine. And of course, morphine was wonderful for pain management. So it was not illegal. Till all of a sudden, you have heroin. And now people are using heroin. And once again, I don't want to bring up the names. I could tell you to look it up. You'll be surprised. Artists, musicians, they claim that the heroin gave them their genius. There's actually a rhythm and blues guy that I was shocked that he admitted to the fact that he was every day high on heroin. But he considered that gave him his, it gives you the euphoria that comes from this stuff, I guess, gets your mind someplace else and enables you to think differently. Who knows? But the point comes back to it changes culture, because on the other side, who are they all advertising to? Children. Okay? Does everybody follow me? Why am I bringing it up? Right now, today, first to third graders are able to take medicines, I'll put H for hormone, to change their sex. And the parents don't have to be notified. You guys just had the same shock I did. Okay? And so, pardon me?
Does that mean it's legal? Somebody passed a law?
Sure. So what you have is the culture's changing right in front of it. And that's why I started, guys. I'm not political. I don't want to be. I'm an independent guy. I always will be. But I'm finding that's why I brought up the healthcare piece at first. When I saw patients go from hating going to the doctors to all of a sudden everybody went. And then what did I see? Well, too many people were going to our emergency rooms. So what did they do? They charged you a copay. They're not allowed to do that. But they've been doing it for how many years? So everything changes in order to accommodate. So now what do we have? We have a culture that has changed. And in the process, what we're all doing, we're doing, but we're not paying attention to the children. And why do I bring that up? The second part of this is health. So all this occurred in the 70s to 90s, we'll say, with the drug culture. Although the ones I didn't add that are now big are Adderall, methamphetamine. Methamphetamine used to be given out for weight reduction. And there were different pills that were out that you can get on a shelf. It was legal. Well, then once they started to extract it at a higher concentration, that's when people start smoking it and everything else, and that's what made them wacky. And apparently there's a movie on HBO or a series on HBO. Some guy, Walter somebody or other, used to cook the stuff, and for 6 or 7 years he got Emmy Awards for what he did. So what does that mean? If a show on television says it's okay, it's okay. And so kids are out there smoking methamphetamine. And what does it do? It gets you wired up. So what happens when you come down? Go get a high energy drink. I remember the first time I spoke about it. I went home and my son was drinking a Monster. Okay? And you know what bothered me more than anything? I don't know where he got the $1.50. You know, because he was in like 6th grade or something. I don't know if you've seen those Monsters. The can's about this big. It's black with green stripes on it. Yeah, it was like $1.58. And that's what I got upset about. My wife saying, I don't care about that. Look how much is in it. He's bouncing off the wall. I said, I want to know where he got $1.58. But the point came back to the culture changed. All of a sudden, it's cool to be like bouncing off the walls all the time and taking these drugs and enjoying the high and all. And so the markets change and all the products change and everything becomes condoned. And all of a sudden, what do we have? Because what's in these high energy drinks? Fructose, corn syrup, high doses of caffeine. What's that combination give you? And then when you come down, depression. Is everybody with me? And diabetes. And so what do you give them? Adderall. Does everybody follow me? It's a vicious circle. And then what's the other ones we didn't list? I only listed the top 5. Valium, benzos are up. And these are children, guys. These are children. That's what we're talking about. Like the whole, I mean, we've all done what we've done and we're healthy or we're not and we're dealing with life how we are. But it's important because we all have family, we all have children, we all have nieces, we all have nephews, we all have cousins or what have you. And we're not paying attention. I know I wasn't. When I did this and I looked and I saw it, and then when you see the profitability, and then when you read into the person that changed advertising, this blew me away. Edward Bartley, Sigmund Freud's nephew. And he knew he needed to get into the subconscious. So all the advertising before that was the quality of the product and, you know, made in America and all the things that made you want to buy it. And all of a sudden he knew you had to put it in your mind in some way that you wanted it and you needed to have it. So you had to have like a beautiful actress sponsoring it or a person that was a football player or baseball player. And that was how they created the advertising market. And it was amazing. I still remember when I was at Shepherd Pratt, I did my psych in Baltimore. At Shepherd Pratt, they were just bringing out the Egg McMuffin. And they showed data that if you watched the 11 o'clock news to the first commercial, because that's when McDonald's put the commercial on for this, and you weren't punching a clock, 30% of people were going to stop at least once a week to get an Egg McMuffin. Well, guess what? Because I was there for 2 years, wasn't 30%. First year, 74%. But that's like, it's a whole area, it's a whole industry. And what is it all for? Profit. So they're able to change what you think. And once again, guys, I didn't believe it. I didn't think it was possible. And then as I told you how this all happened, I'll use the COVID as an example. I'm vaccinated and boosted because I'm in healthcare. Okay? People that aren't and would question me in my office about things, if I couldn't answer them, I would tell you, get as much information as you can and make an informed decision. What I found were that people that chose not to lost great jobs, like lost them. You know, we had people that worked at the clinic I'm telling you about. Nurse practitioner lost their job because, you know, in healthcare, and I agreed, I think you need to be immunized. But the point was, the changes that have occurred in the last few years have taken my eye off the ball in terms of what's happening to children. I had no idea 3 to 6 year old women, 6-year-old girls, I don't want to call them women, 6-year-old girls are paying attention. Oh, here's one. Fiji didn't have television until the 90s. And before that, there wasn't even a diet product on the island. Didn't exist. As soon as television hit, over 80% of the women on the island were doing diets and into dietary changes because of the marketing on the television. And so it comes down, it's a powerful tool. We're seeing 3,000 ads a day. Children are seeing 10,000 a day. What they're doing with the children is affecting the wellness of everybody. And it's having a major impact. Look at the ones I'm showing you. Diabetes, anxiety, and depression. Staggering numbers from fructose corn syrup. And we can follow it. Remember what I said, 1983? That's what I found was so interesting, how they do everything at the same time. Remember how I told you 1983, the nonprofits changed? 1983, our government, the FDA, approved fructose corn syrup. And where do they put it? Soda, cereal. You with me? Who eats the soda and the cereal? Children. What did we see? Diabetes. In the, say, we'll put the line, say 1970. It was a straight line. Right around 85. You know what the most common operation is for children today before they're 20? Gastric bypass. Gastric bypass because of their obesity. So it blew away tonsils and adenoids, appendix. My wife does the some of the reviews. It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. And again, guys, we're not paying attention. That's why I brought it up, because it affects your health. And it affects all our health. All the stuff I'm talking about, what's it called, GOLA? I think there's like 2 or 3 different dietary things out there today. And the way they're having their success is getting into the mind. Oh, by the way, I'm getting there. The wedding's coming up November. It was funny, my daughters were in about a month ago. There's like, Dad, you gotta lose another 15. Happy to say, I only have 14 to go. But the point still comes back to the control in our minds is phenomenal. It's unbelievable how you can watch something, and even for a second, that's how they have these, they call them pop-ups. They're pop-ups on your phone. They just pop up. Unless you keep them, boop, you can hit them and they go away. So, but you see it, and you do take it in. So in that millisecond that they're throwing it out there, or I don't know about you guys, I have one somewhere. For the practice, I do have a phone, an iPhone, and I hate texting anyhow, but I can't get my children unless I text them. If you call them, never answer. You text them, they always respond, okay? So I do text. So when I'm trying to text on my phone, the iPhone, that artificial intelligence, change your words. So I'm trying to tell Holly Monday, I put the patient on Lasix and something else. And Lasix that kept coming up like lavishness or something. And I finally wrote diuretic. But my point is, that's what's happening, and it's every day, and we're not paying attention because something else has us thinking something. And again, guys, the reason, it's so many factors come into play, but the main reason is for everybody to understand, right now we are in a situation where if changes can be made for profit, they're going to be made. And I just had conversations this morning with some patients related to being admitted to the hospital. Observation instead of admission. I've told you this, guys, but it's worth repeating. Do not leave the emergency room unless you know you're being admitted. And if they say observation, tell them to send you home. And if they tell you you're too sick, then say, please call the representative on the back of my Medicare card. 100% of the time, you will be admitted. You'll be admitted. Does everybody follow me? So please, guys, because that's what's happened. In the throes of all these things that are going on, healthcare changed. But all the advertisements you guys are getting, have you seen anything on an ACO? Anybody even know what an ACO is? They're called accountable care organizations. And that's the standard of Medicare in America since January of 21. We're getting into January of 23. And you didn't even know it. You follow me? So they're sending you all this data for you to make the right choice on your health care, and you don't even know they switched the American program. Just like managed care. Remember when managed care came in and how everything changed? The accountable care organizations are relationships between the doctors and the insurance companies. Okay? They have a relationship. They have what they call, they share risk. And so the risk they share, they control the money. What does that mean? That means if you go to the hospital and the doctor orders $5,000 worth of tests on you, it comes out of their pocketbook. Doctors are cheap. Does everybody follow me? So what does the ER do now? Less tests, send you home. What do they tell you? Call your doctor, see your doctor in 3 weeks, 3 days rather. Get into your PCP in 3 days. The test will be done as an outpatient. Does everybody follow me? But what happens to me is when we put in like, okay, you need to have a CAT scan or you need to have an MRI, then we have to show the documentation. So my office has to get the information from the hospital, then we have to see the patient, and then you have to, it's called a face-to-face. You have to send the form. That's why I told you, we took care of a patient in less than 12 hours that had lung cancer that I saw in 1991. I can't do that today because they get diagnosed in the ER, they get told to see me, I have to see them, send the face-and-face to the insurance company to get the insurance company's approval to get the testing done. So everybody follow me. And this all happened, guys. I've been up here for over 20 years. We've been talking about it. It's all happened. We could not stop it. Why could we not stop it? Because the advertisement gets to the, who here believes they get anything for free? Right? I still remember my grandfather telling me that many, many years ago. You don't get anything for free, son, ever. So if someone tells you that, they're lying to you. But what was it? Free eyeglasses, free hearing aids or something, all that. Oh, U.S. Healthcare. Was that what it was called? I think it was U.S. Healthcare, something like that. The guy dancing in the rain, you know, Mr. Blackwood that got the first 1 million customers to sign up, got his bonus. But once again, what was it? It was a change of culture. Everybody went along with it. Why? Because of the commercials. And how did it happen? Look, it's up there, guys. 1983. FDA approves fructose corn syrup, nonprofit in the hospitals. Don't think that wasn't planned by whoever makes the plans. I still to this day don't know who makes all the plans. You know, the bottom line is, how did I get here? Patients were calling my office saying, Dr. Copplola, why did you quit United Healthcare? I didn't quit United Healthcare. What do you mean? Well, we got a letter that you're no longer in United Healthcare. I said, I don't know, I'll look into it. And as I told you earlier, the insurance company that we had that does the credentialing was mad at me because I left them after 22 years. So they didn't forward the mail. So now they're telling me I will get back in, but they don't let me know till the end of the month. And does it bother me? Not at all. But it bothers me because my patients were concerned. And that's how this all started for me, guys. I started looking up the credentialing process. I started looking up some of these other things. And what I realized was United Healthcare got into our marketplace and they did a great job of advertising. And they've gotten many, many patients. And from what I see, it's a good insurance product. But the point is, the advertising is what gets into your mind. And once it gets into your mind, it's like I told you guys, first 10 or 15 minutes I see a patient, I'm being told more about healthcare than I used to provide to them. You know, they're coming in telling me that they heard on the internet this or they heard on the internet that, or what about this product or what about that product. And of course we talk about it, but I caution them to be very aware of where they're getting their information from. All right, now I want to summarize everything so everybody gets a handle on what my main concern was with everything we were talking about today. Let me do it this way once I'll catch one. Perfect. Pop culture, healthcare, and wellness. When the advertisement says to you that you don't have to exercise, just take this pill, you can lose weight, okay? Most of us buy that. Not buy it. Understand a little pill is not going to have you lose weight. You got to do something different. But remember, the advertisement's going to the children, okay? And they don't understand it. And they don't understand how all the products out there that they're eating and drinking, especially the high energy drinks, are not good for them. And so what we're running into is you have two different places people are getting their information from. And which one is the culture believing? Not the wisdom and the knowledge that once was the star of the day. And what's the wisdom? You know, it comes from experience. And after experience and after we get older, you recognize, my father used to always say, every decade your priorities change. And boy, was he right. And so you end up in situations where we're now more aware today of how simple things could have been when we were 20 years old, but now it's just like, I wished I would have, okay? But for where we are today, we still have to pay attention for our health and wellness. And that's why I want to make sure everybody pays attention to the person that they trust for their health care. And make sure, please, guys, please, 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 don't take anything without talking to your doctor, because I've really had some real serious stuff occur in like the last, I'd say, probably year and a half, you know, just from, like you see the stars talking about it, like the person that gets on TV, that athlete that says, you know, oh, take this and this, you'll feel wonderful. And again, we're in front of a TV too often, I guess, because that becomes the mainstay, or people on the internet, it's even more. I mean, I have nurses do it to me all the time. You know, 10, 20 years ago, it was simple. Now what happens is I'll get a call in the middle of the night. Oh, Dr. Copplola, I see Mrs. Jones is on such and so medicine. You know, I'm thinking maybe this, this, and this. And I'd say, what's the patient doing? They say, sleeping. That's what I'm going to do. We'll talk about it tomorrow morning. You know, but I'm still getting the calls. So what's happened is, where's the information coming from and what is the source? And if you don't pay attention to what the source is, be at least cautious and concerned about the information, guys. Because I'm very concerned to the point, the wellness piece, okay? You must pay attention to what you eat and drink. You must know what is in what you're eating and drinking. And you have to know that exercise, sleep, and the other S is for stress. You have to get exercise. Remember what I said. What's this? Exercise. Okay? It's fine, guys. You can do just that. That's exercise. It does not have to be running a mile and all those things. And you have the ability here. Walk around this room. That's exercise. But you have to get it in some way. Stand up and sit down. I have patients doing that now that are doing great. That's all you got to do. The buttock muscles, there's 3 on each side. That's why you beat kids in the butt, by the way. That's what I always tell my children. But the bottom line comes down to if you stand up and sit down slow, you're using those muscles. So if you're watching TV, when a commercial comes on, stand up and sit down slowly. That's wonderful exercise. But you got to exercise. You have to. Things for the mind that we have now found, they are working, and I'm so excited about it. Have to stimulate the temporal lobe. How do you stimulate the temporal lobe? Music, sound, whatever you want to listen to. They recommend that you listen to an orchestra of some type because you pick out all the different instruments while you're listening. Smell brings more blood to the olfactory nerve, which is right in front of the main part of your brain, the hypothalamus that controls everything. So the aromatherapy is working. And the 5 I'm telling people to use, hopefully you have around your house. You know, the coffee of some type, vinegar, ammonia, vanilla, and I'm forgetting one, but it's around your house, I know. It'll hit me. But the bottom line is, all you have to do, 5 minutes a day. That's all you got to do. Breathe it in, let it out. Stimulates that part of your brain. It is so important. And then you have to think about things you don't think about normally. So whatever mail you throw away, read it. Read your junk mail. It makes a difference. And again now, guys, the one I have to emphasize more than anything is stress. I have 2 children getting married. One, the 12th of November. I had some time to prepare for that one, even though I haven't lost all my weight yet, but I hope I do. The other one snuck up on me. September, Labor Day, 5th or whatever day it was. He's the one that's in medical school, and now he starts his clinicals. So he says to me, he's like, Dad, I'm thinking of getting married. I said, oh, is that good? And he says, of course, I love her, this and that. I'm starting my clinicals. Everything's going to work out. I said, oh, great. Okay. Well, then my little sister calls me and tells me she got to save the date. Well, he never said anything to me, so I thought the save the date was for my daughter getting married in November. And I said, boy, that's odd. Candy's usually on time with that. She goes, oh, it's not Candy, it's Matt. So then I said, oh, what did it say? She goes, it says December 30th and 31st. And I'd never heard of that before. So I called him up and I said, hey, thanks for telling me you're getting married. He said, I told you I was thinking about it. I said, do I have to pay anything? He goes, yeah, Dad, you got to buy all the booze. And he says, you have to have rehearsal dinner. And I said, oh, well, thanks for telling me. And then I said, what's this 2-day stuff? He said, oh, I thought since we're having it on the 30th and the next day is New Year's Eve, let's just have a party on New Year's Eve too. And I said, am I paying for that as well? Oh, yeah, but don't worry about it, Dad. It's not that much. It's in Washington, D.C. It's very expensive. But the whole thing hit me where we take for granted and we assume. You can't. And please pay attention to what the commercials are saying, guys. Please, 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 please pay attention. I'm finding, like I said, shocked that they're hitting our children like they are. 10,000 things they're seeing, advertisement, not necessarily commercials. And we're seeing 3,000. Do you believe you're seeing 3,000? I couldn't believe I was, and then all of a sudden you watch a game. They throw 5 commercials in between, like the punt. And again, I'm talking while it's there, but it's still hitting my eyes. And that's what they say, it gets to your subconscious. So please pay attention, find a source. If it's your children, if it's your doctor, if it's your friend, whoever it happens to be, before you put anything in your body that you read about or you hear about, please talk to somebody, have information. If you have an informed decision and you're my patient, I don't mind if you don't even talk to me, but please make sure you understand. And the other one we add to that, I think we did to talk about it, the genetically modified foods too. So if it says GMO, so fructose corn syrup, GMO, you got to stay away from. And again, guys, my hope is that as they embark on getting you to get to a different Medicare program, please pay attention to what we're talking about. And I have to add, because it just happened to me, I can't give you patients' names and I can't give you places, but let's just say a lot of patients aren't prepared for illnesses in their 80s. And when I say that, I'm talking about your insurance. Because you don't know what it is that's going to happen to you, you're not prepared when it does. And it's really frustrating because as I see the patients, I think to myself, didn't we talk about this? And I guess I'll have to have a specific talk about it, because what I'm finding is it's all money. Oh, low copay, and you still get skilled care, and you still get rehab, and you still get that. You got to get into that to find out what happened to you. If you're not, they call it 2 midnights. If you're not in the hospital 2 midnights, you don't get skilled benefits. And no one tells you that. And none of the papers you're going to get are even going to talk about that. So you want to talk to somebody about what benefit that you have. And then don't think that you're not going to get sick. Think of every potential sickness you can get. A stroke, a heart attack, open heart surgery, problem with your lung that you need surgery, problem with your belly that you need surgery, a broken hip, a bad back. Think about those things. Ask the person that you're talking to, do I get coverage after the hospital for an inpatient rehab? You don't know what it is, they don't tell you about it. I'm telling you, I get confounded over what I see. People on fixed incomes that are stuck with no ability to pay the copays and deductibles, and all of a sudden they see, well, it was nice, I was only paying $80 a month and I didn't have copays and deductibles, but this doesn't cover me. And so all of a sudden you get into a hospital situation and you're home and you can't get the therapy of choice. I've learned that one too. I used to tell patients, oh yeah, I'll call, we'll put a referral in and someone will call you tomorrow to get you started for home care. No, they need face-to-face, they need all these things that go along with that now, that my note is only one part of it. Whatever we're talking about, if it's your back, I got to show them an x-ray or I got to show them some type of an examination that showed that you need that. Does everybody understand the concept? So please, guys, today, if you got away from today knowing that all you're seeing on television is for a profit, that's what it's for. And if you pay attention to healthcare is one of the most profitable products in the world, you'll have an understanding. And I'm not even getting into my conspiracy theories, because once I see all this stuff, I'll leave you with this one. LSD, which was number 9. Anybody see the movie One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest? Okay. The guy that wrote that in 1968 went to Washington, D.C. to participate in a rally. Our government gave them LSD. And the only way he can get off of the LSD was to go to a psych unit. And that's how he wrote the book. I saw it on the History Channel. That's my other favorite. I do the History Channel and Animal Planet. Those are my favorite. If it's sports, one of those 3 is what I watch all the time. And I love all of them. But the point comes back to, please pay attention to where you're getting the information, because you don't want to be on Adderall. You don't want your friends, your family, your nieces, your nephews, your grandchildren. You don't want anybody on Adderall. And you want to know why they need the Adderall. The attention deficit disorders and all the stuff they're talking about, that I'm not a pediatrician, but please make sure, remember the high energy drinks? I got a patient that came to me when he turned 18 years old, and he was on Adderall because he had an attention deficit disorder. He was taking products to lift weights, and he was drinking 3 Red Bulls at school a day. That's why he had attention deficit disorder. The sugar and all the caffeine would bounce him off the wall, and then when he would get to the low, he couldn't think. So when he went to the doctor, didn't tell the doctor he was taking all the high energy drinks and such. The doctor felt that he fit the criteria of the ADHD, put him on Adderall. So everybody follow me. You know, it's not supposed to be the way it is today, guys. And once again, remember what I told you about the marijuana, you know? And again, I didn't even tell you the whole story. It's not worth bringing it up. Too close to the election. I'll tell you that story in January. But the bottom line comes down to the people that are pushing for any drug to be legalized, they don't understand. I'll leave you with the comments I made to this person, because I went to the meeting with Dr. Jagiello. Half of the room was pro-marijuana, saying stuff like, oh, I've been smoking pot for 50 years and I'm fine, and all this other kind of garbage. And on the other side were businessmen saying, I can't get a clean urine. I need 50 employees. I can't get a clean urine. They're all on something. You know, what the hell is going on? And after it was over, I'm sitting in the front row, and as the guy walks by, he says to his aide, he said, there was a bunch of senators and people there. He said, you always worry about a guy in a suit that didn't open his mouth. And I go, me? And he said, yeah. I said, you don't want to hear what I have to say. And he says, I do. And I said, let me tell you a story. I love stories. I have a mobile home. I used to drive to Niagara Falls, you know, Friday night, stay overnight at my brother's. First thing in the morning, we'd go up. I'd park the mobile home, walk down to my children to the big clock, and I would say to them, everybody here at 12 o'clock for lunch. My youngest at the time was 6, and they would meet me. Soon as gambling came to Canada, you grabbed your child by the arm. You follow me? You change the culture, you change the environment. And they already have. Any place right now that has legalized marijuana, it's ridiculous. And yet, they're not even talking about that. And that's all you hear. Oh, it's going to be money for the infrastructure. Right. It's all profit, guys. So sorry I was late. Always fun chatting with everybody. And I'm not allowed to tell jokes anymore. That's what I was told. I can't tell you that. Yeah. It's just some bad things happen with the jokes. So I'm going to be a good person. I can always tell you funny stuff, but I can't tell you funny jokes. Any questions at all, guys? Yes?
So an insurance company paid for a child to have her body altered through surgery?
Yes. It comes back to what is being told. And again, guys, the reason I brought it up is this is factually happening. Children are getting hormones from 1st to 3rd grade, and your parents don't have to even know about it. It's being taught to them. This is happening. That's why I bring it up. In terms of the insurance companies, I can't give you rhyme and reason to any of it anymore. I really can't. It doesn't make sense. And again, one of the things, the criteria they threw out, if a person wanted to get bypass surgery, they had to see me for a year. What does that mean? They had to come into my office every year, report everything that they ate, because they didn't want to do bypass surgery if you can't change your behavior. Then that dropped to 6 months. Now it's gone. Why? Because there's so many obese children. And diabetes is off the chart. And guess what? We're seeing dialysis and the NASH, non-alcoholic steatotic hepatitis, in these children. And it's all because of the fructose corn syrup and the culture. And that's why I say it may not affect you, but I see it has just from talking to my patients, that they're telling me stuff that they're hearing all the time. Oh, I hear it's good. I should take vitamin this or vitamin that, or I want to take this, or I want to. And I talk to them about it, but I always make sure they are aware of, see where the information is coming from, and be sure before you put something past your lips. But once again, guys, I think the key is have that person, your confidant, the person you talk to, or use your doctor to talk to them about the fact of, this is what I'm thinking, this is what I want to do, are there any potential side effects, could this harm me? Does everybody follow me? Yes.
I have 2 friends whose grandchildren came home from school, young teenagers, saying they wanted to be the opposite sex. Their parents went along with it, and they're in support groups that are filled with huge numbers of people, young teenagers.
I think we're doing the topic in April. Suicide. There's suicide chat rooms. My son, who's 31 years old, has had 35 friends die from suicide. We're not talking about it, and I don't know why. You know, but I am. I think Karen will tell you whenever that comes out, I pick that as one of the topics. Because, again, when I see the stuff and it gets my attention, I don't understand. So all the things that are happening, we got to pay more attention to. But for us, I knew it was Medicare. That was what got my attention, was all the advertisements that come for Medicare and all the things that patients, I have patients who come in with 10 or 12 different stacks of paper, getting them from 10 or 12 different insurance companies, saying, hey, doc, which one do you think is best? And what I do is I refer them to an independent insurance company that does that. That's who you want to talk to. Has to be an independent one. You don't want the person that works for UPMC or the person that works for Highmark. You want, I can't even name insurance companies anymore. You see the advertisements, the little Geico guy, maybe Geico or something. Call an insurance company that actually handles healthcare insurance and has handled healthcare insurance for at least 20 years. And then you ask to speak to one of their agents, because it's free, doesn't cost you anything, and they'll go through what I told you have to know. Because we all feel pretty good today, maybe, but when something happens, especially when you don't plan it, that's when life changes. Yes?
I just want everybody to know that this Chris Zappa is coming to speak, and will talk to anybody about health insurance.
Perfect. Perfect. Because that's what I was going to say. They have to be independent. If they're at all, if their paycheck comes from an insurance carrier of a product for Medicare, I would caution you about what they're telling you. If they have the whole insurance company and they sell house insurance and life insurance and all, and that's just one of their products, usually those agents use everybody. And so they sit and talk to you to find out, how's your health, what's going on, what's happening. And then again, guys, it's like I said, I don't want anybody to have any problems at all. But I tell you, in these situations, you got to plan to have a stroke, you got to plan to have a heart attack, you got to plan to have these things in your mind's eye, and then you talk to that agent. Okay, we'll call him Joe. Okay, Joe, I fall down the steps and I break my hip, and after the surgery, I get a wound in my hip and I need IV antibiotics for 6 weeks. Does this insurance cover it? You follow me? That's where you have to get to, guys, because those are the things you never anticipate. And then when that happens, I get the call. Dr. Copplola, what am I supposed to do? And usually what happens in those situations, you get stuck with a call. If they come to your house to give you antibiotics for 6 weeks, you got to pay for that person coming in the door for 6 weeks. And if you have the right product, you don't even pay for it. And I don't know what it is, guys. I can't tell you that. I know my father had whatever, something special, 65 special, whatever hell he had, he didn't pay for anything. And he didn't have to get anybody to give him approval to go. But I know it was expensive. That part I do know. But the bottom line is, put yourself not in the scenarios of how you wish to be healthy the rest of your life. Put it in scenarios of, okay, Joe, I had an aneurysm rupture, and I had to have a feeding tube, and I have pneumonia. And they told me in the hospital I have to go to a rehab unit. Does this pay for the rehab unit? And when they say, oh yeah, it pays for the unit, your next question, how many days? You follow me? When I started this, you got 21 days no matter what. Now, depending on your insurance company, well, we reevaluate it in 72 hours. What does that mean? They're booting you in 72 hours. Are you ready after an aneurysm ruptures and you get weak as a kitten in 72 hours? No. You guys are fine because you have stuff here on campus. But I'm just saying, in general, don't look at these companies and what they're sending you. They're all trying to make a profit. You have to make sure you put worst case scenarios out there to them. Hey, I fell down the steps and had a bleed in my head. I had to have a craniotomy. They took the blood out, and they're telling me now, because of that, I have to be on antibiotics for 6 weeks. Does this pay for it? Those are the questions that you bring up to them, and watch them backpedal, unless you get the people you're talking about. If somebody's doing it because that's all part of the whole scheme of what they do, they are independent, and they will refer you out to what you need. Good. Any other questions, guys? Good. Thanks for having me. You'll see next month whether or not I lost the weight I was supposed to lose. Yes.